What's going on, everybody? Good afternoon. And with the Combine officially wrapping up yesterday, let's take a look at who the Seahawks met with. And a few days ago, I already made an initial video looking at some of our preliminary visits at the Combine. But now that we're beyond the entire event, I thought it would be a good idea to take a look at everything that we have. And this isn't everybody, I don't think. I think you get like 45 visits, and there are definitely less than 45 players. But this article, Field Goals, so they put all this together. Shout out to them. And Mookie Alexander for putting together this lovely little tracker here. And a lot of the stuff in this article is stuff that we already discussed the other day, like Junior Colson, Chris Jenkins. We knew we met those guys, and of course we were going to meet those guys. Dallas Turner, Marshawn Nealand, Jaden Daniels, Jerzon Newton, or Johnny Newton. They call him both. I don't know which one he prefers, but if we draft him, I guess we'll find out. Trevin Wallace and Braylon Trice. I think those were the guys who we already knew about from the earlier video. But that was not the end of it, of course. I want to go over a few more guys that reportedly met with the Seahawks. Michigan cornerback Mike Sainristil. I'm probably mispronouncing that, but he used to play receiver, and they've listed him as a receiver in this article, but he switched to cornerback. And I remember reading an article after the national title game where one of the UW receivers, I think it was Polk, was talking about how good a job Sainristil was doing at calling out routes and calling out plays from the secondary. Like, he had a really good sense of what the route was going to be, where players needed to be in order for them to be able to take the play away, and that was a big part of their success in that game. So I think that Sainristil will probably go higher than the Seahawks are able to afford to pick him. Like, I think the aggregate has him in the second round. Maybe he slips to the third, maybe you get him there, but I don't know if we can take a cornerback in the third unless we really are planning on moving Woolen, which I'm not completely ruling it out, but I still don't think that's likely, and I still would prefer that not happen, personally. So I don't know if there's anything that can come of this, but he had a good combine, too, as near as I could tell, so I think he's a second-round pick, and I just don't think we can make that work. Unless you flip Woolen for, like, a second- or third-round pick, and then you use that pick on Sainristil, that's tough to justify. So he's a nice player. It's a nice meeting. I like the fact that we're at least taking a look at this stuff, but just logically in my head, with the roster the way that it is right now, hard for me to make it make sense. Another meeting that I didn't catch in my initial video was Jahim Bell, tight end, and this guy did not have a very impressive season. This guy kind of disappointed. He was one of the tight ends that I had earmarked to keep an eye on throughout the season, and he had some moments. He's still an interesting specimen. And, of course, he tested at the Combine, so we're getting to see what he can do physically. But he definitely didn't have a big breakout. He didn't end up in the first or second round or anything like that. In fact, it's gotten to the point where I don't even know where he's going. He could go undrafted, and I wouldn't be shocked. He's kind of gotten to the point now where he's not guaranteed anything. But this is the kind of guy that we need to hit on. We need to find a Jahim Bell. We need to find some tight end we can get ultra cheap, low pick, UDFA, cheap free agent deal that can contribute, because we're probably losing Fant and we might lose Colby. So we got to find guys like this, or else we're not going to be able to fill out the roster adequately. We can get away with having like maybe 2 tight ends that can play, but ideally you have 3, right? And I understand that most teams are not going to carry 3 productive tight ends, but you don't want your third tight end to be somebody like Tyler Mabry, a guy who should be on a practice squad. Also met with Byron Murphy II, which he's become the new top defensive lineman on most big boards. I don't agree. I also don't think we're going to be able to draft Byron Murphy unless we lose Leonard Williams, which I don't want to do. But Byron Murphy's great. Makes a lot of sense to meet with him. We might lose Leonard Williams. It's possible. Cannot rule it out. So I'm looking at something like this, and I'm wondering if maybe negotiations with Leonard Williams aren't going great. And if that is indeed the way this pans out, there's going to be a lot of pressure on the Seahawks to use their top pick on a defensive lineman. Newton or Murphy would be the prime candidates there. In fact, I don't think there's really anybody else you could take in the first round. So I could kind of see why there's interest in a guy like Murphy and Newton. But again, the only scenario where I think it makes sense to take them would be if Leonard Williams just cannot come to an agreement, which I don't think we want that. I think a vast majority of us want to avoid that. So I just have to be realistic here. Again, remember, Mike Morris is here, and there's a very good chance Mike Macdonald likes Mike Morris a lot because he coached him at Michigan for a year, and he was just a pretty good player in general. Another cornerback here, TCU cornerback, Josh Newton, met with the Seahawks. Again, the position is a little bit loaded right now, but Newton is somebody who might go a little bit later. And I definitely do not put it past this coaching staff to want to bring in cornerbacks of the future. Trey Brown's a free agent in a year. Kobe Bryant and Rico Woolen are entering year 3. If you keep Woolen and he has a big year, he might want a monster contract. Maybe there's a scenario where McDonald doesn't want to give it to him, so he wants to stock up with depth. Maybe we're not bringing back Mike Jackson. So there are a lot of scenarios where I can imagine adding a little bit of help at cornerback, but I don't know a ton about Josh Newton personally. I haven't been looking at cornerbacks that much this offseason, admittedly, for, I think, pretty clear reasons. It was also implied that we met with Drake May, but Rappaport was frustratingly vague here. He said that Drake May met with essentially the same teams as Jaden Daniels. So I don't know if that actually included the Seahawks. Rappaport did not elaborate, so we just have to guess. And I'll say this, it wouldn't surprise me if we weren't. Drake May, he might slip a little bit at this point, but I don't think he's going to slip very far. The teams at the top mostly need quarterbacks. Like Drake May, I know that there are some minor concerns there with him as a prospect. Hawksnest doesn't like him very much. I know Rob Stanton doesn't like him very much. There are concerns that people have. I'm not enamored with him either, but I do think that he's going to end up going in the top 5 because teams need a quarterback up at the top of the draft. So very hard for me to believe he'd fall anywhere close to the Seahawks. Now, of course, there's the other scenario where you trade up, but I've said this before, I'll say it again. We don't even have a second-round pick this year, so trading up is going to be extra hard. And I don't want to trade up for Drake May. I don't want to trade up for Jaden Daniels. I'd trade up for Caleb because I think he's going to be really good, and I believe in him. But, again, I don't think that's the John Schneider way. And some people will say, we don't know what John Schneider's way is because he's never been the head of personnel before. Well, we have to remember, he comes from that Green Bay system, and Green Bay was a team that typically didn't overextend themselves like that. Green Bay was a team that would just kind of sit in the pocket and just wait for things to come to them. I heavily suspect that John Schneider's way is don't sell the farm and the moon and the stars for one player, no matter how much you may like that player. And the last couple meetings here, we got Duke offensive lineman Graham Barton, really intriguing interior offensive lineman prospect, currently projected to be a first-round pick. He's going to be on the short list of most likely Seahawks first-round picks, I think. We'd probably trade back a little bit to get him, but Graham Barton makes a lot of sense at the left guard spot. That's where I see him ultimately landing in the NFL at left guard. There is some potential for him to play tackle. He also played some center in college, so could be some versatility there as well. But obviously, I think Graham Barton has fallen behind a guy like Fatanu, who we probably didn't even really need to meet with a guy like Fatanu because Ryan Grubb and Scott Huff know him very well. They've coached him the last 2 years. But a guy like Graham Barton, you do actually potentially need to meet with. You can benefit from that in some way. So that's a great meeting. Zach Zinter, he was the guy who broke his leg for Michigan and ended up missing the end of the season. But he's still one of my favorite right guard prospects. It's a pretty top-heavy right guard class, and Zach Zinter is part of it. Even after breaking his leg, it seems like he's going to be okay. Seems like he's going to be good. I like Zach Zinter a lot. You bring him in as your long-term right guard prospect and make Bradford your backup. I think you make the team better. I do. So, Zinter, great meeting there. Love it. Jaquan Jackson, a Tulane special teamer / wide receiver, playing with Michael Pratt over there. We also met with him. These are the kinds of wide receivers the Seahawks might take a swing at here because they have such a good receiver core that I can't imagine them spending heavy capital. But a guy like Jaquan Jackson that can help on special teams and maybe be a receiver down the line, that could work because we all know Lockett's not going to last too much longer. In fact, this may be Lockett's last year. So even if we keep Lockett, the plan for replacing him and not compromising JSN needs to start to be put in motion here. And speaking of Michael Pratt, we met with him as well. And that I find really interesting because Michael Pratt might be the kind of quarterback that we end up going for. We've got a couple third-round picks. Pratt might go in the third. He might go in the fourth. I don't know. Somewhere around there, if I had to guess. We have our fourth-round pick as of right now. And Pratt is a guy who I think has the upside to be a franchise quarterback, but he wouldn't come in and immediately just be ready to go. He's a smaller school guy. He's not some perfect prospect at all, so he needs some time. But if you brought in Michael Pratt in like the third or fourth round, I think that would help quell the quarterback of the future concerns while not compromising your ability to build a team for now with your earlier picks. All right, so those are the visits we got to hear about. There are probably more out there that we just didn't get to hear about, but let me know what stands out to you. I will see you guys later. Go Hawks, more videos coming. See you guys on Twitch later tonight. And yeah, thanks for watching.